So we're going to have our next panel now, which is the future of community radio. So earlier we talked about the past, now we're going to look ahead to the future. So to chair this panel, I'm going to welcome to the stage UKCRN co-founder Rebecca Sears.
Our studio just it's a bit unnerving big up here, isn't it? Oh, we've got a slide. No problem, yeah. Oh, there we go. Future of community radio. We're 20 years into the sector, which, who was here at the very beginning? Any hands here from the beginning? A few hands, tentative hands going, ugh. But what does the future hold? I think that's really key. And more importantly, how do we get there? And how do we seize control of the future? I'm keen to welcome up on stage and share this and get some other people involved in this. So I'd like to welcome up Javed from Bro Radio Academy. Javed, Sattar, is it Sattar? From the Community Media Association. I've known you for years, but I was like, I don't know if I'd have remembered your surname if anyone would ask me. And Meah, who we had earlier, up here from CAS Radio and the Cornwall Community Radio Network as well. Anywhere you kind of see these, just share stalls as well. So obviously we had the panel earlier hosted by Dom, reflecting on 20 years of community radio. But what does the future hold? We've got this panel here of different people giving different views and coming at it from different directions. And obviously community radio, there's a million ways that we can sort of skin this cat, or whatever the saying is. A lot of the stories today are talking about different approaches for community radio, but we're all in it for one big thing, which is, to be successful. You might hear me talk about not just surviving, but thriving. It's certainly changed a lot. So very quickly, we'll go down the channel. Starts on my right here. Introduce yourself, your station, and what you do at your station.
So I'm Jamie Pritchard. I run the Bro Radio Academy. Those of you who were in Cardiff last year, you would have seen me presenting all about that. It was in its really infancy at that point. It was less than a month we launched it. We're now 12 months into it officially, and we're amazing. Modest. Running youth courses, adult courses. The youth courses I'll come on in a bit. You're back on.
Rich about youth courses and how it inspires talent and all that. So that's kind of briefly who I am and what to do.
Me.
So I'm Meah Howlett. Sorry, you've got me again for a little bit. I'm from Chaos Radio and the Cornwall Community Media Network. And specifically for Chaos Radio, I'm a producer there. So my background after leaving university was working with local BBC, working in production there. And I was brought into Chaos Radio to help them develop news content and develop more of an identity with sort of radio production and content and interviews and stuff like that. And then with the Cornwall Community Media Network, I do a lot of their training. So the boot camp that we set up, I run that and I help to upskill volunteers.
Javed.
Thank you. I'm the founder of Owaza FM, community radio station based in Glasgow, in the best country, Scotland. Thank you. We had across the border to come over here. But we were invited to do the pilot. So we applied and we were one of the lucky 15 that got accepted. I think they only wanted 10 for the experiment. And then I think they chose 15 across the UK, so we were one of them. So although it feels like 20 years of community radio, it feels like 25 years when we got the original pilot, and then we got the year extended. So yeah, so I'm the founder director. I was been going strong. Since then, we've got on average 55 to 65 volunteers seasonally adjusted. We very much operate like a commercial station because our target community is the Asian community and the African community in Glasgow, but we're very much the community at parks, and so we've got young volunteers, old volunteers. We basically, more or less now, I think, 20 years on, we're facilitators for our volunteers. If it wasn't for our volunteers, our station wouldn't be where it is, and I can't stress over the 20 years exactly how powerful volunteers are.
And whilst you're there, obviously, part of the reason we invited you here is you're also vice chair of the Community Media Association.
Yes, I remember that. So I'm vice chair now, but before then I was just a CMA member. So we're a membership organisation, so if you're not a member of the CMA, please do become a member of the CMA. We are an elected body, so and everybody has a chance to become a member and stand for elections. So yeah, I got dragged into the CMA by a lovely person called Amarjeet, who was one of the original founders for her station down in the Southall, the radio. She goes, Javed, you need something. I said, where? Join the CMA. I said, why? Because we need young people like you. Really, I know nothing about the sector, the CMA. I'm just here to see how I can apply for a license, because I'm really interested in license. Cut a long story short, I'm very passionate about community media across the UK. I believe community should have community radio stations. We have challenges, but I'm sure we'll probably do that.
You know, we shared time on together on CMA Council, and you know, CMA, was it 40 years, 45 years?
It's 40 years now.
Celebrate, you know, so your sector very much wouldn't be here, you know, if it hadn't been for the CMA. And then briefly for myself, obviously one of the co-founders of the UK Community Radio Network 5 years ago under lockdown. I'm seen as a sort of more, I sort of want to use a radio centre, but not quite use a radio centre as an example, because I'm not sure how this will be completely, you know, akin to them, but more looking more at the representation and support development of Ofcom licensed community radio. And first, that's very much one of the separations, passionate about community media, and that's the role Community Media Association plays, is the broad brush across all community media, but particularly a voice of Ofcom licensed community stations, and we'll touch on collaboration and collectiveness later on. On top of that, my day job is running MI Radio in Northampton, which is a community radio station linked at the moment in partnership with a university, and then also run Bedford Radio. And also, for those that are coming this evening, and founder and chair of the Community Radio Awards, which is coming up to nearly 10 years old, and I don't want to think I've been kicking around the set to that old, but I think we first did work together over 10 years ago.
Yes, we did, and well done to Rebecca for putting that together. It's amazing how that journey has happened.
But anyway, we're here to talk about the future, absolutely, and start actually by Meah. You talked a lot today about collaboration in Cornwall. How important do you think collaboration is going to be for the future of the sector?
I think it's going to be huge. I'm quite biased, but I've seen the power and how it works over the last few years. I think also I found it interesting with thinking about community radio and collaborating together, but also not being afraid to collaborate outside of that as well. So obviously I've worked with BBC Local Radio in my past, and so I very much have that bridge between local radio and the community radio sector. And I think for me, it's sort of making sure that there's not that hostility between stations in a local area, and making sure that when we work together, we're thinking about, I do write notes, so I don't forget, don't I? Thinking about sort of training, even sharing volunteers as well. So there are going to be people in our local area that have a huge wealth of skills. And one of the things we've seen is when commercial radio is kind of coming out of local areas and BBC Local Radio is being more regionalised, there's these people that are left with a wealth of skills and so much knowledge, and they want to give back to their community, and there is no reason why they can do that for one station or 5 stations in a regional area. And so sharing volunteers, information, and also technology as well. So Chaos Radio are really lucky that we've had quite a lot of new technology that we use, including stuff like Starlink for outside broadcasts. And we regularly share that with other community radio stations because there is any benefit for us sharing it with them. And we do that regularly. And I think with training together, volunteers swapping, less hostility, and sharing knowledge and technology, we only all benefit because we raise each other up without having that nasty cast it walking.
And, you know, it was quite impressive to see what you were doing. You know, we were talking about it earlier. I know from UKCRN, kind of good. We're keen to see what we could do to collaborate more on that. How do you think we can replicate what you've done in Cornwall across other, regions and nations? And I suppose, you know, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to other people sort of start that journey?
Don't be afraid to have an awkward conversation. I think sometimes it's not always easy to start from nothing, and we are still very early in our journey. And someone asked me about it earlier about why aren't all the stations in Cornwall with you? And I think that's a really good point. I think we're not going to shy away that there are a few stations that still see it maybe as something that they don't want to be part of and they don't see the value in it. And you are going to have that if you do first start making those steps. But I definitely do see that it can happen in different regions or nations or however it might work in your local area. And I do see the value in it. But yeah, my top bit of advice is don't worry about those awkward conversations, because we're now 4 years on and we've made some incredible connections, and we have all benefited from working together, and we're all in a much more sustainable position than we were 4 years ago. And that's the future for me. If we can help each other, hopefully we're here 20 years' time.
Jane, you talked in Cardiff, for those that were there, about Bro Radio Academy. We were talking about it earlier in a very modest way, very early. Can you just move this way slightly? I don't know about you, but I keep hearing a slight bit of feedback. There we go. Just move us all closer. How important is training of young people to the future of community radio?
For me, incredibly, I like Meah, I've written notes, by the way, because I'm used to it. In terms of young people, we've seen one particular success story. I'll tell you this one success story, which I'm incredibly proud of. 12 months ago, we were in Cardiff. Is it November? 4 weeks, yeah. We were 2 months ago.
Lots changed for me in the last term.
12 months ago, we were in Cardiff, and you were 2 months into a youth course. And a girl called Evie, 17, basically walked to the door, the YMCA, pointed in my face and went, I want to be on Radio 1. I was like, okay, great. Got somewhere to start. And her confidence was rock bottom. It wasn't great at all. Fast forward the course, lucky ties, whatever. And she was losing her voice. She was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. She left. I was like, see you next week. 12-week course, 7 weeks in. I said, see you next week. She went, you sure? Bearing in mind, she'd sworn at me that evening. And I was like, yeah. She came back, she looked me in the eye, following me, she went, I'm really sorry. Good, fine, 17, don't know. Fast forward, she's completed the course. She's then pestering me to come into the studio. Right. I got an email in April with the subject line, get me in that studio. Anyway, still 17. Right. And I was like, great, let's foster this and let's kind of nurture this high. And every week that I'd be in the studio with her, I saw 18-year-old me, 17-year-old me. Ben might not be doing this 22 years. And she was determined. She didn't know that she had a talent. Basically, weirdly, she said to me the other week, she's like, you were the first person that believed in me properly. And that kind of said me, whoa, like this is the whole reason for me doing this. Brody Academy with a team that Nathan with the team that I've got. She's now got her own show, Brody. She's now doing Weekend Breakfast 7 till 9. We were able to give that to her as an 80s birthday present. And she looked at me and went, I don't believe you. I was like, well, believe me, because you get in this show, and she's been on press releases over the last couple of weeks or so. And for me, that's the future for me of youth and injecting that radio passion back into the youth of today. As someone like me all those years ago and seeing someone like her. That's just, yeah.
I mean, I think at Bro, you've got a good range of ages involved. You know, Nathan as operations director, for a few people in the room probably would still see him as a younger face. I think That was a compliment. I was complimenting you. I wasn't. As a sector, I think we are seeing challenges, and Javed, be keen to get your thoughts on this. We are, 20 years into the sector. If people in their 40s or 50s were launching community radio stations 20 years ago, those people are now coming up to 60s and 70s. And I think for us, this conversation we've had with the DCMS, with the CMO jointly, is sustainability of the sector, sustainability of some of those, a good chunk, I want to say almost a good quarter of the station, the sector, of legacy, sustainability and succession plans. We've heard, UKCRN, we've heard of stations, CMA, I know you've heard of stations that have closed or are closing, and it's because the leadership at the top are old, or they want to retire, they desperately want to retire, or even a couple of stations where the people at the top literally fall over and the station dies. I'm going to come to both of you on this one. Well, and Meah, you can chip in as well, is how do we fix that? Genuine, because you've got people wanting to come and do presenter talent. How many young people are coming to your doors saying, not I want to be on air, but I want Nathan's job? If you'd want to do.
Who has? Evie has said that. News to me.
Because it's not just about presenters, it's about managing stations behind that.
Yeah, there's some people that come to us and go, "Well, just want to be a presenter," but there's some people that then see the
Have the awkward conversation about maybe presenting isn't feeding.
Yeah, I've had all those. One of them, when you see the studio, they're then intrigued to know how things work. And some people get it first time, some people don't. And it's all about, for me, I've written the word nurturing is part of something that I come up with today, believe it or not, which is finding, inspiring, nurturing, developing. It's about nurturing interests in what people are interested in. 9 times out of 10, we're all radio stations. We've all been on the radio in some way, shape, or form. That's our top passion. But actually, everything for me, and I keep saying this we get like at the moment we've got 2 courses of Yamaha Paul's 22 kids that I'm currently teaching, leading, and another course coming around the corner next week. And I always say to them, the presenting is the cherry on top. Everything else, if the fundraising isn't there, if the technical skills aren't there, everything else, even when it comes to promoting your station, if that's not there, then who are you presenting to, right? So for me, and kind of recognizing someone's talent, I suppose, whether it be presenting, producing, technical, that's for me is the future of stations. And Meah mentioned it, having those awkward conversations. Sometimes presenting might not be good at them, but I had a conversation with my fiance's cousin, and he was like, I'm not very good at maths. I said, what are you good at? And he went, I'm really good at playing the guitar. I said, what are you good at something? Like that. Not everyone is good at everything, but everyone has a skill. And that's what we're trying to do with Rural Radio in the Academy. It's in trying to focus. They may not be good presented. I'm not going to be as blunt as that, by the way. I'm not that horrible. Lane's walked out of the room. I'd say now. But yeah, it's noticing that they may notice that an XLR are blocked. That's for me.
That is my volunteers, absolutely. Most of them, I don't think they'd know on SLR if they literally tripped over it. I will come to you in a second, but I'm keen to get, as a young person as well, if you see that as a compliment. I don't know why Nathan didn't.
Why didn't you say I was a young person? Hey, you didn't say I was a young person.
Pass. I think you've got quite a younger management group as well, I think. The other Nathan, you don't know this Nathan, the other Nathan Bowles, he's quite young. Was that pure by luck? What brought you into getting involved at a senior level? Was producing managerial level? And are you inspiring other younger people to take up that pattern as well? Or how do we inspire other younger people as well?
I don't think I'm at the level of inspiring anyone yet. But I think for me, it's about representation. I've been part of community radio for a decade, and it's not an awkward thing for me to say that most community radio stations I was in, I might have been maybe 2 or 3 females in the room, especially being a young woman in the room. And I think for me, if I can see more people my age or older than me as women that are in those roles that are leading stations, I think that is what will help more young women get into it as well. I think that's really important for me. I didn't see it. I stayed because I was really passionate about radio, but I think it would have really helped me if I'd seen a woman leading a station and thinking I might be able to do that one day. I think I've forgotten what other.
How do we inspire? You know,
Yeah.
if a lot of stations are struggling with the overbearing age issue in their management, how do we bring young people into Cape to make sure this sector is here in 20 years' time, really?
I also think it's about diversifying community radio. So I love linear radio. I've always listened. I'm a huge radio nerd, but I can be maybe the minority of people in my age group, and especially people that are younger than me. But community radio isn't just what you hear on a radio in your kitchen. Community radio is what everyone said this morning. So it is those events, it's social media, it's that community news, it's being online, digital first kind of thinking. That's how you're going to get younger people interested.
Is the wider challenge of radio and young people for
Yeah, that's going to make it interesting to them because they can see themselves being a part of that and giving into community radio that will benefit you as a station going forward.
Javed, how do we keep the sector going? I've got more questions on this, but we'll keep on that thread first. How do we inspire more young people to get involved? And, you know, presumably you want to step back and retire at some point. Are you already setting somebody out? You know, that's actually, if I can stop for a second, that puts you, for those that, because I'm assuming there are some managers here and station manager, are you all, who here is already thinking of their succession planning? Of who's going to take over the station when I want to leave, if something happens to me? Only one or two hands. Have you started thinking about this?
It is discussed, but I also don't think it's about young people. I think it's also about everyone in the community, because we've got wonderful people who they've retired and they are thinking, what do I do now? But they come along and they get to do fantastic radio program. I was delivering some training to a school up in the middle of Scotland, in Auckland, and they linked in with a station called Howlett FM, and I had to go for a visit, and this lovely older person, she came in, and she would get some training, and she does a show on music, and then later on, the person told me, do you know who that was? I go, she doesn't like to explain who she is. That was Obi-Wan's mother. Hello. Obi-Wan's mother. So there are people from all walks of life, all ages, who can contribute towards community radio, such as in terms of management and boards. If you have a good board, you should be okay, because there'll be investment in terms of real good quality people to make sure your organization floats smoothly as people come and go. But we have, over the last 10, 15 years, we've seen people suddenly pass away. We've seen they're the driving force because no one wants to do all the back-end stuff. And that's a really, really sad. Takeover Radio was a classic example. There's a couple of people in Scotland who I know who suddenly passed away, they were the driving force. So when you're the one and only person who seems to be doing everything, you've got to ask yourself, how can I delegate some of the responsibility? I know a lot of stuff in my station, and I keep saying to my team, look, I need other people to learn some of the other bits and pieces that I know in my head, because what happens if I get knocked down by a bus tomorrow? What happens there? It's not just the station can go down, but you're losing your volunteers because some of the station falls. You're one lady, male person who might be listening because you're the salvation every day for that to tune into your radio. That's who you're targeting. That's who you're delivering something for. So it's very, very important that you not just think about young people, but you think about everybody across the whole set.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Going on the back of what you said,
We've had someone join us who's in their late 60s, who's had years in the charitable sector, and someone who really is great at interviewing and great at chatting to people, and that's what we need more of. And they know people, and it's the domino effect that we found at Bro Radio. We're finding that it's the domino effect. So if they know someone younger, they know someone younger, and so on and so forth. It works the other way as well. When it's got a show called Brewery Juniors, which, when the parents are listening, the grandparents are listening, so on and so forth, it kind of inspiring everyone. So yeah, it's important for all ages, as you say. But
So all broadly across the rest of the sector, really. And Javed, what do you think we need? Even be broad brush, blue sky. Use all that corporate jargon if you want, mate. What do we need to support the future of community radio?
So we just got a 10-year license. So I'm 57. In 10 years' time, I will be 67. So the conversation we had was, where will I be in 67? I'm hoping that I will still be a part of the radio station. I'm still alive, and it still goes forward. But we have challenges, and we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. So there are some costs that we can't remove, or we could try. But there are other costs, I think, this is me on a personal level. 20 years ago, we sat down with PRS, and we said, look, we can't do the reporting mechanism like people would. But I'm horrified that we have to, as a third sector broadcasting tier, we have to pay extortionate fees to PRS. I believe community radio is the bedrock of new talent. So I don't think we should be paying that. That's a direct cost that I can be easily removed. Should we be paying Ofcom the fees that we have to be paying? No, I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. So these are costs that we can probably try and lobby and remove. Now, if you have a fantastic studio, fantastic premises, well, that's really down to what you have. And all community radio stations evolve, they go to better premises. I remember I visited just at the time of the Millennium New Style Radio. And I remember they're in Birmingham, they're no longer existing, I think it is. And when we went along there, we thought, oh, wow, fantastic premises, fantastic studios. You can have a £250,000 studio, but if you don't have the volunteers, you don't have the content, you don't have the money to keep it going, what's the point of having £250,000 studios? So you've got to be realistic, and you've got to say, right, where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years, 10 years? Technology is changing. How people listen to us is changing. I asked my daughter 10 years ago, do you and your friends listen to radio? No. But do you listen to your favorite artist? How do you listen? She was on our phone. So technology is changing how we do that. And are we grasping all the technology that we're using? I know AI was mentioned. Is AI going to replace certain presenters? Some people will say, yes, it will. It was proven in Australia. This was a conversation last year with some people. AI replacing voiceovers for adverts. So they're no longer going to go to send people. So we have to move with times. Cars now, it's all Apple Play and Android Play. So no longer do you get the word radio. I still believe we need to keep the word radio alive. It isn't about audio, but the radio is who we are, and we need to keep it alive.
I was going to say, I've had someone ask me if we're going to be rebranding as the Community Audio Awards, and I can tell you, no, we're not. That seems to be the trend, is everyone's stepping to audio, but, Meah, absolutely inspired thereby, it's still about linear radio. Javed, you will know, a lot of people here might know, UKCRN, CMA, we're trying to have a conversation about working more where we could, we've done some good pieces of work in the last couple of years, working collectively and collaboratively. What more do you think we need to do as sector bodies to not only make sure the sector survives, but thrive? I'm really keen on that. Survive, not just surviving, but thrive it.
Well, one of the things Ofcom has done is lessen the restrictions of community report, like some community reporting, social gain, etc. Social gain is really, really important. Some stations are still hindered by advertising restrictions. So I think that's been relaxed. That's gone. So I think we are moving in the direction. I don't think Ofcom can keep up with technology and what it's trying to do. When community radio started 25 years ago, what it was, and then from Radio Authority became Ofcom, we had Sue Williams. Anybody who knows Sue Williams, that was our point of contact. We suddenly lost Sue Williams, we lost Elaine Whitford, and we suddenly are now part of the bidder. Well, you put something into Ofcom, it will take off.
They'll get back to you within 5 days, according to their auto reply.
So
I'd love that check-up.
So where does Ofcom see themselves? Because sometimes stations can be Suddenly, the building where the transmitter is on is about to be taken down. What do you do? Suddenly, the studio that you're renting suddenly is no longer there, or the landlord must steal it repossession. So these are the challenges I think directly affects us. So I think we will still be here. I like the Ofcom gave us a 10-year license. So for 10 years, we know FM is still going to be here. But there's talk of, and people have said this, will they switch FM off? No one knows. Technology, we've only living in 5, 6G worlds. And how we broadcast content, rather than just being radio, is going to be valid. I think social gain and everything that we do is going to be important. Like understanding on why keeping your local hospital open is important, conversation. Why keeping your local park is important, keeping conversation open. We live in this whole green world that we have to be. These conversations will still happen regardless whether we're on FM and go to AM or wherever it is, or whether it'll be digital. I don't think DAB is going to lap. I think it's all going to be Wi-Fi, annotated. It's all going to be internet-based, and that's where we were heading. So how we get to that is our challenge.
I mean, I still firmly believe, I'm in my early 40s, and I still believe FM will still be going strong for community radio stations. Will still be going strong when 20 years time, because they've been talking about, the switch off of FM for nearly 10 years.
Even longer.
And, I'm involved in SSDAB, SSDAB is going, I know, wherever Dino is, Dean's involved. There are a few people who are involved in SSDAB. I think it is part of the future. I don't think it solves the future. I think interconnected cars and all this, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, anyone here, have you got a car with a built-in internet connection? You press a button and up pops radio. No, and these are radio people. Radio people also must be innovators. Again, I think we're 20, 30 years away because it's about the largest, biggest denominator. There is more FM radio stations in the UK than there are, anything else. People were like smart speakers. Smart speakers are the future. Don't bother with linear. I know a few internet stations that aren't interested in their FM radio license because they're with their mates and their friends all have smart speakers. Smart speakers are the future. Who in this room have a smart speaker? Most people in the room, but your radio. I think it's only something like 30, 40% of the UK, and it's plateaued off.
But I'm going to just answer that. So I sometimes deliver training to older people, and it's a lovely lady, Kathleen, and she, like many other older people, she does not want to be altered. She still has a little phone. She still wants to feel she wants to switch on the radio button. My mum, exactly the same. She just wants to switch on the radio. Most of my crew who listens to my station, they're old school. They want to switch on the radio station. That's what they want. Younger people who are into technology, yes, they will move over to Alexa or your app. I mean, I think the session on radio player or radio player is pulling forward the way for cars and app. So you don't even need to even have an app for your station. If you're on radio player, it's something that's going to be inbuilt into cars, and also it's on your TV. So I know that during last year, people will have to tune into my station. I said, look, if you can't get us on FM, you can get us on DAV, we can get us on the Sky button, boom app, because you can get us, because that's what they can offer you.
It be everywhere though. That is worth saying. It's be everywhere. But I mean, I think FM is a long way to go, and I still think to us the biggest thing as a sector is unlocking funding. Actually, I've just remembered something I wanted to bring up in this panel. We worked with Wayfield and Ofcom. They did some research on impact measurements. I know the CMA were a consultee on that as well. A Wayfield released the Community Radio Impact Measurement Toolkit. Who here, hands up if you've heard about this? Hands up if you've used it. Yeah, okay. So go away, and this is interesting and frustrating, and it means I think we need to do more as UKCRN, and if I can be honest, I think as CLA, we need to do more. So Wayfield did some research. We got funded by Ofcom to do some research about the impact of community radio, and one of the things we strongly advocated for as UKCRN was the value of broadcast community radio. Bringing people on. I was like, how many here you bring in charities, community groups, social enterprises, small businesses, individual artists, everything, the lifeblood of your local community, you're bringing them in. What's the value? What's the impact on that? And they come up with a number. And if you didn't know this, If you're not asking your presenters and your volunteers or whatever to log your guests, you should come speak to me. I've got a template form that we use that's 90% full. And we've been logging for years how long people are coming on for as an interview. And what this researcher said is that for every minute of airtime that you give to a voluntary community social enterprise or faith organisations, or VCSFE, is worth £5 worth of impact. And at NLive Radio, we worked out that we've done over £20,000 worth of impact on air last academic year. And actually, yeah, great, you can't pay your mortgage with that, you can't pay your rent on that. But that's the kind of stat that you can put on a funding application. That's the kind of stat that you can send to any of your stakeholders to say, this, how often when you're doing grants, how often when you're speaking to businesses, are they saying, but what's the impact? What's the value of what you do on air? Great, if you're doing training programs, if you're doing outreach programs, you can measure that in that. But we have got that. And I think actually one of the hardest jobs, and it was one of the things that UKCRN we try and inspire to do more, is you guys shouting about what you do as a sector, as you're in your stations, and then us collaboratively trying to draw that together so that when we have meetings with DCMS, we can say the reason we need a bigger community radio fund is because this is all the work that community radio is doing. So do go and check with that. Check the Ofcom. You all would have got an email from Ofcom. It probably would have got filed into that folder of labelled spam from Ofcom. Do check it out. It's the Wave Hill Community Radio. Also, if you haven't seen this, this is a couple of years, 18 months, 2 years old now. UKCRN, we did some funded research with an academic to talk about it's what inspired the Wave Hill research. And it was called Listening Locally, the Power of Community Radio. We've got a link to it on our website as well. And a couple of stations took part. So reach out to those. Where are we now? We've only got about 5 or so minutes left to the next speaker. So I want to open up to questions. Loads of questions. I don't know where Nathan's got. Do you mind do me a favour? Do you mind running around with the microphone for a second? Hands up, you've got questions. He's escaped. Well, then I think Alex. Oh no, you did tomorrow. Sorry.
School buckle, Bella.
Hello. Hi, excuse me.
So just before we go any further, hello, my name is Jake. I wear many hats. I GTFM, and I wear a project called Vibe Radio, which is basically more of like a hyperlocal radio station who is out there now looking to collaborate with other South Wales community radio stations. Is what I'm doing as a samples project sort of helping to shape the future of community radio, which is basically having a hyperlocal station to sort of broadcast in South Wales, but also being a support network to other community radio stations within the area?
Anything that you do that is positive, of course it helps. There was talking about how community radio stations can work together. That's sometimes not as easy as what it is, but I think where you can work together really well is funding applications. I think funders have started to understand what community radio is about. It's been hard to push, but I believe we are heading in the direction. I think funders are looking at community radio as a mechanism to go and give money to. So I think, yes, having those conversations, working together as partnerships to see, can we do something collectively? Not every station will agree, but I believe that's forward. I mean, I'm just going to pass it to...
I'm just going to keep it short. Yes, you're doing the right thing. Yeah, for sure.
I can't answer that. That's what I was going to say.
Good afternoon. My name's Hayley. I'm from Manchester and here on behalf of WinChaFN. And I also work in the classical music sector. I have two things. One, as a comment, in classical music, there's always this overemphasis on younger audiences, but I do want to thank you for talking about age diversity as being something that we really need to focus on and not just younger audiences. We are better when we are diverse, and it's better to not be segregating people based on demographics. And secondly, a lot of the audience research that we look into in classical music is showing that audiences are increasingly looking for digital detox. So finding ways to actually unplug and not be so plugged into this online sector there's counter-revolutions happening in younger audiences. And I'm just wondering how much lobbying groups like yourselves are looking at that as a tool to really be lobbying things like Ofcom and the sector to show how we can be part of that cultural change and how community radio really plugs into the unplugging and digital detox.
I think that's a really interesting one. You know, we spent a lot of this time talking about we should be doing more to be on socials, we should be doing more to be clued into the digital. But ultimately, linear radio is about switching off and putting your device down, and can be about listening and getting involved. So actually, yeah, maybe we should be doing more to celebrating the fact that, you know, radio helps you connect, helps you know the listener connect with what's going on without being attached to one of these at the same time. And maybe we've got a role to play. Or?
I mean, in terms of Ofcom hands are tied by legislation. They can only do what legislation tells them to do.
I mean, we're also recording this, but I don't mind saying this. I think they're also tied by their inability to actually forward think and work proactively. I'm more strongly on the fence. I think Ofcom need to be reformed as well to be better serving for everyone, not just community radio, but I think just more broadly looking at communications for the future. Reforming in terms of community radio, that's a whole separate 20 minutes where I think could be doing much better.
I mean, I just wanted to add one thing. I know the BBC Charter is up for renewal 2027. So there's this thing about people used to say in the past of the last 20 years, oh, why don't we just slice the BBC license fee? And so we can have a better radio fund. But that is only for one sector. I think we need to look at, as a sector, making sure there is a bigger fund that is not just only for community radio, but also that does social gain and community media in general. So whether you're a commercial company or a private company or community radio, you can actually apply for that fund. There is a model that's in the islands, and hopefully that's something that you can replicate.
Cool. I think maybe one or two more questions. I think if we grab these two, Alex. And it's worth saying, whilst we've got another speaker coming up, we've then got we've got lots of networking time afterwards. People can then go home and then come back for the awards, or stay here as well. We've got apparently a posh fish and chip pan rocking up in a bit. Anyway, go.
You and I first met, nearly 15 years ago.
No, I don't say things like,
Yeah, sorry. At the CMA meeting in London to talk about national advertising. You remember that meeting?
Do you know how many times I've had the conversation about let's set up some sort of national advertising?
That's what it was all about. And I don't know about any other stations, but over the last couple of years, we're starting through care industries, through London-based, or not necessarily London-based, marketing agencies are giving us advertising, but off the back of my relationship with the local brands. But there still needs to be a lot of work done with national brands who've got local interests. Not every station has someone who can go out and see these people. There needs to be more about national brands advertising with local. One of the things you've said, especially through COVID, was no play, no pay.
Hashtag, yeah, can I bang that drum for a second? Who here plays government advertising for free on your radio station? Please stop. Because why are they going to pay all of us to run their ads when most of you will pay them for free because you think it's the right thing to do? If you're going to give free airtime away, find local charities, find local organisations that couldn't afford it, but maybe helps tick your social impact box to do that. Also, when it comes to reporting, do you ever give anything away for free? Put a value on that and tell them that, because then that's in kind. As much as we have to register in kind, if you turn up, even if you go to events for free, put a value on that, and you can also report that as this is the in-kind that we've given out, and report that back to them. So yes, but on collaboration, this is really key here, I think. Whether it's a county level or regional level, whether it's sharing resources, I think advertising is key. There are a lot of markets. There's a reason why Global dropped down to, was it 11 or 12 regions? They're the old ITV regions, and it's all based on marketing, advertising, sales. So that's why all these Hearts and Bauer did it when they merged. It was all around advertising and sales within those regions. So actually talk to the other stations, have that awkward conversation about how much do you charge. Don't be pragmatic, go to the lowest denominator, don't be greedy, work collaboratively. Because actually, it's not about nicking local ads from each other, but it's about unlocking more regional ads. It's unlocking, it's unlocking the cinemas and the the car dealerships that or McDonald's, they're not interested in you in your one little town. But if you can give them 5 community radio stations across the county and have one point of contact and know that it's going to work, and I know I'm talking about a lot of hypotheticals here, and I've tried doing this, and like you said, I've been having this couple of 15 years, a long time. But yes, and there are other people, I think, trying to outbot national ads or regional advertising as well. We'll get there. 20 years in, I feel we're closer than ever to cracking some of this, and government advertising as well.
They start talking more so lawyers talking to power
Agents, yeah, but it's because of radar, and we think we might, there are some movements in that roof as well.
I just had, I thought one of the stations I came across, he gave me a really interesting story. We offer a local advertiser 3-month free advertising. I said, why would you give free? Well, give them 3 months of free advertising, see their impact, and they'll probably think, well, this is really nice. And then a few weeks before it finishes, do you know that your advertising is going to come free? Oh, no, we didn't. Okay, we take a package. They then might come on board and it's, yes, it does work, and it works for that station.
Okay, right, final question. I'd be terrified of doing that. Be terrified.
Hello, I'm Sadie, I'm from Sheppey FM. I work with the youths predominantly, so we get a lot of obviously young people in working. What my question for you guys, because you're talking about sustainability and having, a order of people taking over people's. How do you keep the young people? Because obviously I keep them so long, we do, they do their training, that obviously they go off to university and things like that, which is what we want for them. But I'm not just talking about the kids, I'm talking about the younger presenters, because obviously when you're talking about community and volunteer work, most people have day jobs. They're not going to go and give up their day job to do voluntary work, because obviously it's cost of living and everything. It's really hard for them to give up time for nothing. So obviously most people are older and retired and have already done that, or you're dealing with people that have mental health problems or disabilities and things like that, so can't work because of them reasons. So then maybe they will want to take on the extra responsibilities. How do you keep these young people interested and long enough for them to take over things?
Tough question. With us a pro radio, we kind of had a level 1 course and a level 2. So essentially they do their 12 weeks and then they would come back and do a monthly kind of Saturday. They'd come in for 2 hours on Saturday. We keep their interest, ask them, give them the power to the extent what they want to learn about. That's about as far as it goes, because it's
Their interests, their kind of.
we've all got jobs to an extent. Got to earn money somehow. And it's a fine. And I can't give you a definitive answer. I really can't. I wish I could. Meah might be able to, and Elaine.
I think the only thing I can give positive on this is what has worked for us at Chaos is empowering that individual to see their value in how they give to their local station. So the general sort of volunteering that you might think of at a community radio station doesn't work for everyone. As you said, they might have jobs and they might have disabilities, mental health that are barriers to them getting involved and then being part of your station. But we don't just have like one type of volunteer that joins us. So they might ad hoc do a bit of social media for us, or they might join us on a morning where they just give some editing skills. And once they see the value that they give to you and you empower them to say, this is the change you're making, this is how positive you are with us, a lot of the time we see that confidence building makes them want to stay and makes them want to give to it. And so that's why I say about diversifying what community radio does, because I love community radio in all its forms. But if we go to where the audience is and of all ages, whether that's online or podcasts or however we look at how we package our content, more people will see that they can give their skills and their value to that. So they should stay and want to keep being there, hopefully.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. As I hope we're in with some really good conversation there. But you carry on those conversations right after the next speaker. Thank you so much for joining us on this club.
Thank you to Julie Pritchard, Rebecca Sears, Glenn Howlett, and Javed, Sattar as well.